Welcome to Let's Talk Bayfront, a monthly lunchtime chat about different aspects of the Bayfront Parkway Central Corridor Improvement Project planned for the City of Erie. I'm your host, Jill Harry, the Press Officer and Community Relations Coordinator for the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation's Northwest Region. The Bayfront Parkway Central Corridor Improvement Project. It's a big plan with lots of components, so we're going to break them down into smaller pieces and invite some experts to help us dive deeper into each topic. And we want to hear from the public along the way. So if you're joining us live, you can submit questions through the Q&A box. For those listening later on, you can reach us via the email address bayfrontproject@pa.gov. As time allows, we'll get to as many of those questions on today's topic as we can. Quick reminder, if you are joining live, you can turn on captions in a variety of languages. Just click on the three dots on the toolbar at the top of your screen and choose the language that works best for you. We are recording today's session so that it can be posted on the website with the other episodes in this monthly series. You can find that at www.penndot.gov/district1. You can also find links to future episodes there along with the recordings. We plan to hold our chats starting at 12:05 p.m. on the third Tuesday of every month. So we hope that you'll come back, you'll mark your calendar and bring your questions with you. There will be links to each session on the website, like I mentioned, but also on the Bayfront Parkway Project Facebook group. Today, we are lucky to have with us Justin Baker, who is the construction project manager for work on the new bridge behind the Soldiers and Sailors Home off East 3rd Street in Erie. The bridge is a supplemental project being done ahead of the main Bayfront project, and we'll let Justin get into more details on that in a moment. But first, welcome, Justin.
Hi, Jill. Thank you.
Why don't you go ahead, Justin, and kick things off with just, maybe giving us a little bit of background about yourself and your career here at PennDOT.
Yeah, thanks. My name's Justin Baker. I'm currently a project manager too with PennDOT here in District 1. I'm originally from Oil City. I started my career in PennDOT when I was going to college as an intern back in 2008. After that, I went on and worked for a company out of Erie called Urban Engineers, doing highway inspection work for a number of years before coming on board with PennDOT full-time back in 2013. I've been involved in the construction unit with PennDOT ever since, and very much enjoy my career here. And beyond my own history, I have a legacy of sorts, especially as it relates to the Bayfront project. My father was pretty instrumental with the original Bayfront project, starting out as the community relations coordinator with PennDOT back in the early 80s. And he eventually went on to become the district engineer. With this project specifically, I know many studies were done ranging from environmental studies to the proposed location studies, trying to identify if the parkway should go on top or below the bluffs. Ultimately, below was chosen, with environmental justice being the deciding factor, as it didn't require the displacement of a large number of homes and families. What's interesting with the Bayfront is it really allowed for the development and improvements that were brought to a beautiful section of Erie that was previously an industrial center and of not much social value to the citizens, even though the docks may have been a popular hangout. So I'm quite encouraged to be fortunate enough to continue this legacy as the project manager assigned to the project, which will surely help to continue to grow accessibility and opportunity for the citizens of Erie.
So a lot of background there. Grew up maybe hearing about the Bayfront, and here it wraps around again. So you must have kind of jumped to leaped almost to the opportunity to get involved here in your career.
Yeah, I did indeed, and I had been asking to be involved in this project since really I became aware of its conception. So I'm pretty excited to be fortunate enough to be undertaking the project management of the entire project.
So why don't you now give us maybe a little bit of a background or a breakdown of what's going on over at the Soldiers and Sailors Home, because some people might not even realize that project is happening.
Yeah, so we're building a bridge right now. It's to provide pedestrian and vehicle access to the east side of the property. which is currently cut off by an existing railroad line. The bridge is a single span, 18-foot wide bridge. It has MSE walls and a decorative retaining wall to allow for the required buildup to satisfy the railroad requirements. Essentially, it's going to be a concrete structure, single span, which means there's no piers in the middle, and it'll effectively tie the east side of the property to the west side of the property in a safe manner and eliminate at-grade crossings for pedestrians and vehicles.
And is this like, I'm sorry, let me start that question again. So when I was doing some of the research to get ready for this interview, one of the things I found is this isn't the first time there's actually been a bridge in this location, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. There used to exist an old wood structure in the early to mid 1900s, and it was basically on the same alignment as the structure we're building now is. It's pretty nice in the sense that if you're coming across the property from the Soldiers and Sailors Home, it very much accentuates the Anthony Wayne Blockhouse. And we're going to be painting the bridge also to provide some additional aesthetic value.
Oh, that sounds nice. So how does this relate to the bayfront? Because, you know, the Soldiers and Sailors Home, though it's not far from the bayfront, it's not on the bayfront.
Yeah, part of the proposed major undertaking of the Bayfront project is to provide a grade separated intersection that takes the east to west traffic under State Street. Currently, there's a switching yard and through rail that the railroad uses for storage, staging, and deliveries in the place where the proposed east to west through traffic will have to go. So in order for PennDOT to improve that intersection to build our structure and allow for true throughway traffic, we must provide the railroad adequate property to meet their needs. And that property sits between the Blockhouse and the Soldiers and Sailors Home, meaning the railroad could potentially put additional cars and tracks in that area. To provide safe access to the properties, a structure had to be built to carry vehicles, bicycle, and pedestrian traffic over the tracks. This bridge will also replace the at-grade crossing that people have been using in the most recent years. And the existing crossing will be closed once the bridge opens.
So it's a part of the long-term plan to create more space down at the bayfront for traffic in a sense, but also to provide safer travel for those people who are at the home wanting to visit the cemetery or the Blockhouse, correct?
Yeah, that's right. And it will be a tremendous improvement from a safety aspect for pedestrian and vehicular traffic here behind the Soldiers and Sailors Home.
So PennDOT is building bridges and doing but mostly bridge replacement projects year after year and doing rehabs and stuff. But very infrequently do we, do it in such a setting. So you're building a bridge where there wasn't one in the immediate past, but also there's that historical landmark that you mentioned earlier, the Blockhouse. So does that create some unique challenges and opportunities for you as a construction manager?
Yeah, it certainly does. It seems like the entirety of the Bayfront project is going to be kind of riddled with public utility and railroad conflicts, each which create their own respective array of issues and concerns. Some of the specific ones with this project were we had to perform vibration monitoring with contingencies in place during the construction of this project, which was put into the contract in an effort to design the underground vibration while we were doing our construction project to ensure that we weren't damaging any of the historical structures at this location. Additionally, there's a wide range of archaeological considerations that had to be undertaken. There was exploratory excavation that was completed here last year, separate from the project. They found quite a number of interesting artifacts, including a previously unknown well that existed pretty close proximity to where the Blockhouse sits now. It's really quite a story with quite a bit of history here. So we had to be very careful during excavation and maintain archaeologists on site to ensure that we weren't unintentionally, removing any of the history or heritage from the location. And it's also, there was some potential to find human remains considering the nature of this location. And talking with some of the folks that ran the Soldiers and Sailors home, they ran into an issue where they found bones when they were completing some of their structure. And when they sent them in for testing, it turns out they were animal bones. And through a little bit of research, we found out that there used to be a meat processing facility in close proximity to where their new structure was being built. So although we were kind of somewhat prepared for that and anticipated it never did come to fruition. And luckily we didn't end up coming across any human or animal remains during our work.
That's a lot of interesting little components to have to juggle there. You know, you don't want to disturb anything that's currently standing, but also you don't want to disturb anything that's under the ground. And it must feel like a very interesting experience that possibly won't even be duplicated in your career.
Yeah, I've never had any most of these concerns. I've never had a project where they were brought up in the past, and I'm not familiar with any in the future. So it's definitely interesting.
So let's kind of get maybe more into the particulars of what's happened there with the project so far this year, because it is, like I mentioned earlier, somewhat hidden from the bayfront. Like you can see it, but you might not realize what work is going on because of the way the home kind of shelters it there from, you know, the traffic. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit on what work you have been able to accomplish so far at that site.
Yeah, it is visible from the bayfront, but you'd really have to be aware of its undertaking to notice anything. And this is good in the respect that we're not interfering with the day-to-day movements of the traveling public, which is rarely the case with bridge projects. We had to maintain existing access behind the Soldiers and Sailors facility while construction is ongoing, which also posed its own challenges. But essentially, so far, we've excavated a few thousand yards of material to allow for the construction of the walls to hold back the embankment, which is essentially just the earth. This was required to allow for some clearances that the railroad has to have for underneath the bridge. So essentially, we had to build the bridge higher than what the existing elevation is of the adjacent earth. So we've completed the excavation. We finished the backfill on the east side of the project. We've constructed both of the retaining walls, which are called an MSE wall. And this season yet, we intend to secure and set the steel beams on top of the abutments prior to shutting down for winter. And the beams essentially are what the concrete deck is poured on. And so we're pretty close to a point that next spring we'll be able to wrap things up relatively quickly.
So you brought up winter, and it really is hard to talk about a project in Erie that goes for more than one season and not mention winter and how winter might affect things. So Erie has seen a little bit of snow so far. It has been pretty warm here from the last week or so, but you know, we all know that eventually winter is going to come back. So what kind of challenges are, you know, involved with having a project that goes through the winter like that?
There's a wide number of challenges. I stress how fortunate we've been with what the weather has been so far. Really allowed us to keep this project on track. We had some minor setbacks and issues with related to the acquisition of materials. Really, I believe all stemming from holdups and related to the COVID and the pandemic. But basically, once the snow starts falling, the ground remains much more saturated than it does in the summer months. This creates a wide number of problems with both excavating materials and also trying to place materials and compact them. Additionally, cold weather affects concrete in a negative way. So we use blankets and potentially heat or other methods to ensure that the proper curing of the concrete is established, which goes a long way in helping to make sure that the concrete meets its strength so that we don't have any issues with that.
So what is the target date for this bridge to open?
By contract, it's required to be fully open on May 17th of 2022. And as it stands right now, we are on schedule to meet that goal.
Okay, I'm going to take like a a hard left here and veer off the topic of the bridge in particular and talk more about the area in general. So I would be remiss if I didn't ask if you had seen any sightings or signs of the ghost of General Anthony Wayne.
No, I can't say that I have, but I am fascinated by the history of this area, and I've always had a keen interest in American military history. The story of Anthony Wayne is nothing short of amazing, and I would really encourage everybody to learn about it. And if they have the opportunity to try to take a tour of the blockhouse, it's really quite an amazing story dealing with the history of the United States. And one of the residents here actually whittles crosses that he uses deer antlers to do, and they're really quite amazing. I don't know, maybe those are going a long way in helping keep the spirits of peace. Who knows?
So just for clarity, people can still get to the blockhouse during its regular, business hours or regular visitor hours, I guess.
Insofar as it relates to the construction project, yes. I know that the Soldiers and Sailors Home has some additional restrictions related to the COVID pandemic. So, anything as far as setting that up would have to go through the PA Soldiers and Sailors Home. As far as our construction project affects that, there's been access to the blockhouse and to the cemetery via the normal route since the project got underway, and it'll remain so until the bridge is completed before we remove that access.
Now, I know I have one more follow-up question here for you. I know sometimes when PennDOT builds things, we aren't the ultimate owner of the thing once it's completed. Oftentimes this applies to sidewalks and things of that nature. But then sometimes we help like local municipalities and things and entities like that with their construction projects as well. But we don't maintain ownership of them once they're done. So who will take care of the bridge after it's built? Is it fall into one of those categories? Is it ours or is it someone else's?
So the PA Soldiers and Sailors facility, they'll maintain the structure for winter services and general upkeep, and ultimately it'll fall under the umbrella of the PDMVA, which is the Pennsylvania Department of Military and Veterans Affairs.
So they will be the ones who will maintain it in the wintertime, but also maintain it for that any kind of maintenance or repairs that are needed down the road?
Yep, that's correct. It essentially becomes their property.
And then once the bridge is finished, is that when people should anticipate maybe seeing some changes in the railroad traffic in that area? Potentially, I mean, understanding that you can't speak for the railroad, but with the opening of the bridge, how does that affect, potentially how the activity there changes for the railroad and that at-grade crossing?
Sure, yeah. So the proposed work for the railroad company couldn't get underway until the bridge was built. So that's why this project was let in the way that it was in anticipation of the work that's going to be going on for the major Bayfront portion. So I would anticipate that you'd start to see some changes in relatively short order as we're going to be done with this project, kind of the end of spring, beginning of summer, which is the perfect time of year to be completing that work. So not being able to speak for the railroad, but that would be my best guess.
And then the at-grade crossing when the bridge opens, I mean, can people still use that to get to the cemetery, or is that closed off completely?
So by the 17th, the bridge will be completed and the at-grade crossing will also have already been removed. So okay. I would suspect that the bridge will probably be open a couple weeks before then. And then we'll be working on doing some closeout work, some E&S things. And part of that would be removing the existing at-grade crossing.
Okay. So any folks who do like to visit the military cemetery that's there behind the home, I'm just thinking it's going to be right around Memorial Day and things like that. So that might be when they see that influx of visitors, they should be prepared for a different traffic pattern back there and get to enjoy that bridge and hopefully in time for the next Memorial Day.
Yeah, that's correct. And really it will absolutely be an improvement to what's there now. It'll be safer, it'll be secure, and I really think that both the residents and the public will appreciate it once it's completed.
Wonderful. I think that this is a really great example of how PennDOT also tries to look at the long term and not just, fix the immediate issues, but see how they can make an improvement that will be long lasting and help, things for years down the road. So thanks for coming and talking with us today, Justin.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It was enjoyable.
Yes, what a great service you're doing for Erie and for people who love history and all of that stuff related to the challenges up there. I guess thank you for taking that on for everybody so that we can make sure that we're preserving everything that's up there and making it safe for people, to take advantage of it when they can. So if anyone who is listening would like more information on the project, you can go to the PennDOT website, which is www.penndot.gov/district1. And then under the construction and roadwork link, you'll see an Erie County tile. And from there, you'll be able to find the Soldiers and Sailors Bridge page. And it has lots of information about the project, but also some of pictures of the work that Justin talked about earlier. So you don't have to go back behind the home to see what's happening there. You can just check out the website. Also, remember that you can find this recording and other episodes of Let's Talk Bayfront at that same website. So our next live session is scheduled for January 18th. And at that time, we plan to talk about the pedestrian and bicycle aspects of the Bayfront project. And our guest will be Jim O'Mara from MS Consultants. So we hope that everyone listening today or to the recording will join us for that session and bring their questions along so that we can learn about that part of the Bayfront Improvement Project. So make sure to check out the Facebook group and the website for a link to join that session. And thank you again, Justin, for joining us today. Also, thank you to Hannah Stiller, who was the producer of this program for us, and everyone have a great day.